live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass, as always, the brains of the operation, Captain Mark Wages. I hate him. No, I'm kidding. Because we're doing relationships, I thought it'd be a good icebreaker. No, we're going to talk about relationships today, and it's an interesting subject. This one's fun because it always brings in people that see this in the feed and are interested in relationships that don't realize the angle that we take on it. But a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today will apply to people regardless of whether or not you are air quotes normal or you're like us. However, for us, it's really kind of essential stuff that we know this. I want to say a special thanks to Ilea. Thanks, Ilea. I know that you just sent this out, and sharing this stuff really has helped build the channel. It's growing nicely, and we're really, really happy about it. So I want to thank you much for your effort. She did a great live feed last night. A little self-conscious about it, but yeah. It was a great live feed.
It was. Very good job, Ilea.
I agree, and I'm looking forward to to her doing her animal sanctuary stuff. I think that's going to be a great fit. I really do. So I'm looking forward to that. So, people, this is a tough subject, right? Because building back relationships is essential, and it takes on a lot of different forms because of who we were, right? We have our birth family relationships that need to be rebuilt, and you have relationships that need to be built back with friends, and then you've got the ones that have to be built back with significant others. This is a really difficult subject for people like us, and the reason is that in a lot of situations, we met these people under false pretenses, right? Very often as addicts, we may have been addicted when we met these people, and so very often they really don't know who they're marrying. And I'll use me as an example so that I'm not picking on anyone or anybody's, life. I will talk specifically about me. My ex, the most recent ex, to be sure, was someone that thought she married somebody completely different than the person that she married. And I wasn't sober. I mean, I wasn't actively using drugs, but that was more because of my situation. At that point, it was very difficult to get stuff in prison where I was. So we married, and, I was clean, but there was no chance I was sober. And so very often, we show people what we want them to see. And that's it. One of the biggest problems in relationships are that, any relationship that's solid, one that's really, really great, doesn't have secrets. And as addicts, our entire life is a secret, right? We build our entire life based on secrets. So let's go with the assumption that we're talking about marriages that are worth saving. Because honestly, there are times where marriages cannot be saved, plain and simple. There was no chance I could have saved the marriage I had with my ex because of the things that I had done, because of the things that she has done. I just don't think that it's something that would have been possible. So let's go with the assumption that these are marriages and relationships that can be saved. We're going to have to work on building back trust. The biggest hit is that once we start to live the life of an addict, we erode the trust that people put in us very often to the point where it's amazing that people can stay together through any of this. You know, the damage that gets done because we are just plain dishonest. So how do you rebuild trust? There is a 4-tier system that I will recommend, and this is something that, like everything else, requires you to actually do these 4 steps and to do them in the way that they are designed to be done. But if you do, I can assure you that this will actually help you build back relationships. One of the good things is this: every person in the world has been burned by trust. There's nobody that hasn't. If you have a child, you get practiced at this, right? And you get practiced at it very quickly, because we ask our kids to do things, they don't do them. We ask our kids to be honest with us. Very often that honesty gets broken, and this is part of growing up. So it's something that every parent deals with. However, with our kids, we're always very willing to chalk this up to growth. And that is what is most important when trying to rebuild trust, is to prove to people that they're not forgiving and learning to trust the same person. You have to convince the people that you are a new creation, that you are not the same person. And how do you do that? The first thing you're going to do, the first part of this, what worked for me was my words matching my actions, consistent over time, takes time. Absolutely. Johnny's right. And that's really what we're going to be talking about, but we're going to be talking about it in steps. The first step is communication. Now, that may seem really, really obvious, but if you think about it, the first thing that we lose once we lose trust is communication. When you feel like you can't trust somebody, then you don't confide in them. You don't tell them things about you. And very often you can live in the same house with somebody for decades and be nothing but roommates, right? In some cases, roommates that have sex occasionally, but you're not really living any kind of a meaningful relationship because that trust is gone. So you got to build back. If the trust is gone because communication begins to erode, then you need to hop up that communication. You need to make this person understand who the new you is. And the best way you're going to do that is to come clean 100% on who the old you was. And Mark pointed this out once, and I thought it was genius. And, when the time comes that you're coming clean, that you're an addict, man, come clean about everything. Don't leave anything on the closet shelf. Don't have anything that is going to come up at a later date, because if it does, all of the trust you're building back will be done. And I know what you're thinking, because I've been this guy my entire life. You start to think to yourself, you know what? If they know everything, they're gone, right? If they know everything, they are out of here. Well, that's the best case scenario. I'm sorry, it is. The best case scenario is to lay everything out on the table and say, this is what I was. This is the person that I have been. I don't want to be this person anymore, but I want you to know all of it. That is the basis and the start of building all trust. If you lay it all out and the person says, I can't do it, well, then it really honestly wasn't meant to be. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it has to be. If you think you're going to tell somebody half truths, and you know what, we're so good at that. We are really, honestly, so good at that. As addicts, we like there to be a little bit of truth in every one of our lives. Your car's sputtering a little bit, somebody hears that noise, you make it a whole lot worse and borrow $2,000 to fix it, right? And get you a $30 oil change, right? Those are the kind of things that we do. There's always a little bit of truth to all of our lives. But if you're going to start communicating to build back trust, there can be none of that. You're going to lay it all out, right? Every ugly bit of truth has to be done. The second thing that you're going to do is work on connection. And it may sound like that's very similar to communication. And in a lot of ways it is, because you certainly need communication in order to build it. But if you're going to work on building connection, then you actually have to spend time with people. As you're trying to build back trust, it can't be something that is done at a distance. Not possible, right? You have to build back trust. And, I work with people who are trying to build back relationships with people that they've been married to as they're getting sober. And you end up using terms that make people sick, right? Well, you need to spend more quality time together, right? Like nobody wants to hear that word. They don't want to hear the phrase, things like date night, right? Put aside a day each week that you're going to spend with your significant other, and it's just going to be the two of you, and you're not going to talk about things in life. You're going to go out and just connect with one another. Well, people hate that. Honestly, every time I bring that up, people push back. We dated before we got married. This isn't something that I want to do, blah, blah, blah. So
the easiest way to make people realize just how important this is to do math. Honestly, you start going, all right, well, there's only almost 400 days in a year. You probably got what, about 30 years left of your marriage if you were to stay together. So you're looking at about what, 12,000 days, give or take. So in the next 12,000 days, you don't want to go out, spend any quality time with one another. Your intimacy is going to build. It's going to be a beautiful thing. Communication is going to get great. This is how you build connection. When you start breaking stuff down into math, number one, you're going to annoy everybody. But number two, it actually starts to work. I just saw a comment that I have to look at real quickly. I promise not to scroll up. Oh, maybe I don't, because that just really went down far.
Which one you looking for, bud?
I saw something about fentanyl.
Okay. Let's see if I can.
Well, if you see it, yeah, if you can find it for me, that'd be great, because I'm not bright enough. So you actually have to work on connection, and this is something that is going to take effort, and it's something that has to be done if you want to start building back trust. Now, if the person is not your significant other, this doesn't change that. You know, if it's your brother, if it's your someone that you work with, it's whatever. You need to start working on connection. Honesty and communication will do that. But that honesty has to be across the board. Little white lies, any of that crap, all that has to be left back there, right? Those can't be anything that you drag into the new you, because if you do, you're not going to build back trust, and you're going to be treading water in a really bad way. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, but I found the comment.
What'd you get? Where's it at?
It's Leah. She says, my 6-year-old son literally just asked me, what happens if you eat fentanyl? I think he listens too when I'm listening to the Lifeboat.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though. I'm actually glad that you said that, because this is one of those things that I talk to people all of the time about talking to their kids about drugs. And one of the things that you hear is, you know, getting that conversation started is just tough. People don't realize how much your kids know and how much your kids listen. I always say, you know what, put on a movie, watch 2 of them in a row. Something will come up that will give you an opportunity to talk about it. And I mean, going back to the beginning of film, you know, there's always been something in every film. I was watching Footloose the other day. As I've said before, I can't watch movies unless basically I've seen them before, right? If my brain has to try to interpret things that are coming at me very quickly, I tend to get a headache. So when I saw Footloose was on, I said, yeah, hell, I'll watch Footloose. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a scene in Footloose where a guy hands him a joint and he throws it into the toilet as the principal's coming in. Yep. And I thought, I didn't remember that from the original, you know, seeing it the first time in theaters, but there are so many opportunities, and your son should know that if you eat fentanyl, there's a good chance you're going to die. It's like eating rat poison at this point. It really is almost that scary.
Especially when they're packaging them like freaking Skittles.
Right. And when they're trying to make them look like candy, that's a very dangerous thing, to be sure. It is. So number 3, people, in rebuilding trust, you're going to make an agreement with the person you're trying to build trust back with. You have to lay down who you're going to be. This is what I am willing to do. And if you're smart, this is what, you know, I'm going to expect from you. Because very often when we have burned a bridge that badly, there is so much residual crap that gets dragged into the new relationship we're trying to build that you can say things like, well, listen, you can have the password to my phone. You have the ability to look at whatever I'm looking at. I don't care. However you decide to do it, what you guys are going to negotiate. But in return, I want you to trust me, right? As we're building this back, it can't be one of those situations where if I'm 4 minutes home from work, you assume I was out copping dope, right? You lay down what is expected. And this is where it gets important. And I'm sure no one is going to be shocked. Write it down. Write it down. And here's why. I guarantee you, if there's anybody on listening to me right now that's married or has been married, you put together an agreement. You say, well, I'm going to do this, and this is kind of what I expect from you. And then 2 weeks later, something happens, and your significant other says, you said you were going to do this, this, and this every Saturday. And you go, no, that's not what I said. What I said was that on weekends, I would try to, no, man. And now the trust that you were building back gets eroded, because they think that you just broke your word. And you know what? Maybe you just didn't remember what you said. Write down the new you arrangement with your significant other. Get a copy for him, a copy for you, or get one copy and post it somewhere, but have this stuff written down so that when your significant other says, you said you were going to clean the garage every single Saturday, you can go to the list and go, actually, if you read this, what I said was I was going to try to get the garage cleaned on Saturdays if things didn't come up, but this is what I'm doing instead. You understand? Okay. And then the very last thing is Kind of what my brother was saying. You have to make your significant other or the person you're working with, right? Whether they're a brother or a wife or whatever, you have to make them believe you are a different person. And the way that this starts right from the beginning is to tell them who the hell you are, right? Truthfully, this is where more people drop the ball in anything when you're trying to build back trust. You start off with let me tell you who I really am. I robbed a bunch of banks, right? I have more felonies than I can count. And you go through and tell them every single thing about you. And that's not who I am, right? This is who I am now. This is the person that I am. And the reason that this is important is because if you don't do this, no matter how much you're trying to build back trust, you are that dirtbag trying to build back trust. You understand? You are that failure trying to build back trust. You are that person that destroyed the trust in the first place. Your significant other, your partner, your friend has to see a different you. And at the same time, you need to see a different them. Because even though the fault is ours, 99% of the time as addicts, if there's problems with trust or anything else, the fault lies with us. However, a lot of really ugly stuff gets said, right? While all of this is going on, they say things like, you know what, you're a liar, you're always going to be a liar, I don't trust you, I'm never going to trust you. Well, if that's the image you have of this person, how excited are you to build back trust in the first place? For real. How excited can you be to build back trust with somebody who told you you're an idiot, you're always going to be an idiot? You're a liar and you're always going to be a liar. So there has to be a new image in your mind of who this person is. And they have to have a new image in their mind of who you are. I remember being in a relationship with a woman I was married to, my first wife. And we went through some stuff that caused some very serious issues with trust. And when I began to build back that trust, I'm telling you the God's honest truth. I was doing everything right. I really was. I was doing everything right. But there was so much residual resentment and hate that it didn't matter what I did. I could have come home and said, hey, I got a job. They're paying $35,000 an hour. And on the way home, stopped, saved 2 kids, and won a Nobel Peace Prize. And her response would have been, but you lied to me on such and such a date. If you're going to build a new relationship, it has to start from scratch. None of that stuff can be brought and dragged from the last relationship into the new. So you communicate something that I've talked about on the boat many times, and I feel like most people just do not get. Perhaps this is an Italian thing, but when you say to somebody, I'm sorry, they have 2 options. They can say, I forgive you, or they can not say, I forgive you. Those are the 2 options, right? Now, you can continue to talk about what happened and hash stuff out until that person says, I forgive you. Because I forgive you means I am giving up the right to bring this back up. So let's start with like the worst possible case scenario. Let's say while you were looped and you were out doing dope, you cheated on your significant other. They may need 3 years to be able to bring that back up. They may need 3 years to be able to say, you know, you said you met this girl at work. Is that really where you met this girl? Because as they're working through this stuff in their head, they need the ability to bring it back up. And you need to be a stud. You need to take it and go, yeah, you know what? I lied about that. That's not where I met her. I met her at so-and-so's house. So that you're not snapping at them. I thought we were through with this. Until they say, I forgive you, it's not over. The ability to continue to discuss this is still on the table. However, when they say, you know what, I forgive you, baby, you may have to remind them at that point and say, are you sure? Right? Because I'm not trying to be a jerk. Well, I'm trying to start a new relationship and one that's going to work. Are you sure? Because if you need to bring this back up again, if you need to talk about this again in the future, then don't tell me that you've forgiven me. Because once you tell me you've forgiven me, I'm expecting to never hear about this again. And it may sound like, you know, like you don't have that right as a cheater or you don't have that right as a liar. But let me tell you what happens if you don't do that. What happens then is you come home and you say, honey, you said you were going to mail this on Wednesday and you didn't mail it. You also said you were going to clean the living room. I got people coming over in an hour. The living room looks horrible. And she looks at you and says, and you cheated with that girl you met at Ed's house in 1997. You're never going to build anything. If the things you've done in the past are a bullet that are going to get pulled out and shot at you every single time you try to have a conversation then you're in deep trouble. You follow me? So once that forgiveness happens, right? Once that is over, then it's over. And you better be the same person. If you're the one saying, I forgive you, it is as far away as east is from west, right? It's out of your mind. And if it's not, you better pretend it is. Because once you say that it is forgiven, you have given up the right to bring it back up. It will erode your relationship and you will never get to where you're supposed to be. That is just an absolute plain and simple fact. Okay. So now trust is starting to get rebuilt. From there, things get really kind of squirrely. And then I'm going to offend a couple of people. It is what it is. I'll get some emails. But in any good relationship, we train the people we love. It is the way it is. They train you, you train them. And that's why things work out together as a couple. You know what? I really don't like it when you do that, right? So that person stops doing that. That's training, right? So B.F. Skinner, if you ever heard the name, got really, really famous training rats. And most men are rats, so just go with this. And the things that B.F. Skinner was able to get a rat to do were absolutely phenomenal, right? Starts out with a rat in a cage, and all the rat does is eat pellets, runs around, does rat things. And then he put a ladder in the cage. Now keep in mind, this is at a point where nobody had ever trained a rat. But his concept was, I'm going to train this rat to climb the ladder. And the way he did it was, the first time that rat put its hand, its front hoof, paw, whatever you call it on a rat. Where's Ilea? What do you call that thing on the, is that a paw? Anyway, that thing goes on the first rung of the ladder. B.F. Skinner gave it a pellet. Now, did the thing climb the ladder? No, it put its hand on the ladder. This tells us something in life. No joke, it does. Small rewards. If somebody does something that you like, if your significant other or somebody that you're working with or a friend or a brother does something and you're impressed by what they do, you really better tell them about it, right? You want to reinforce the behavior in your significant other or your friend or whatever that builds relationships stronger. And we hear people say stuff like, well, she knows I love it when she cooks. Trust me, she forgot that 15 years ago, right? Because you haven't mentioned it in 15 years. So if you go, oh man, I love it when you cook, it does things. There is nothing on this planet that we like more than reward. It's a stone cold fact. There is nothing on this planet that we like more than reward. This year, the lifeboat is considerably better than last year. One of the reasons is we get a lot more positive feedback. And although we don't like hearing it live, we love reading it, right? It's embarrassing when people are looking at you and somebody says something nice. But we like to know that the boat is reaching people. And because it is, we're putting a little more time in, right, to making better videos. We're putting a little bit of more time into making sure that what we do here is a better product because we are getting rewarded. Now we got more people who are getting sober. That's a serious reward. That's not a pellet, right? That's like 2 weeks worth of pellets. And it keeps things going. And the same thing has to happen in all relationships. So as B.F. Skinner really got rolling, this thing would climb up the ladder, right? Climb across the thing, go underneath it and go hand to hand. What he got this thing to do was absolutely phenomenal. And there was so much that we can learn from it. We really can. On the flip side of that, what if the habit that you're trying to work on training is to get somebody to stop doing something? One of the biggest problems that we have as human beings is we make what we want to be changed the largest thing in the entire world, right? Have you ever had somebody say to you, we need to talk, right? That's always a fun one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Really,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Nothing good is coming, right?
Exactly.
We need to talk. And you get home and they say, all right, so here's what I want to talk about. You haven't done this, this, and this. You don't do that. You told me you were going to do this. And 45 things get listed off. Only the first 5 of which the person heard. I promise you. Because then they shut down. And in their head, they're thinking of a retort of something really, really mean to say. Or something to just get, you know what, there's things I got to do. Anything to get out of hearing the next 40 things that you're going to say. If you have a complaint with a friend, coworker, a wife, a brother, anything, make it as small as humanly possible. So you come home and your husband hasn't cleaned the garage. Your husband didn't mow the lawn, right? You could go through and knock down 7 of these things. Make your complaint as small as possible. If you got a complaint with anybody about anything, make it as teeny as possible. hey, you know what? And don't do the we need to talk. You know what happens when you say we need to talk? They run through all of the things that you might say that are going to bother them for the 30 minutes before they get home. They're driving in the car going, she's going to talk about that damn garage, right? She's probably going to, and by the time your significant other gets to the conversation, they're already pissed off. Pardon me.
Yep.
But it doesn't pay off, right? So the person comes in, and I'm not going to say do what they teach you in business. You know, start with 4 positive things. Boy, honey, you look really good today, right? All of that stuff is so obvious, right? Don't do that. But when they come home, say, you know, I thought that the place was going to get cleaned up, right? I'm pretty sure that the homeowners association is going to freak out if we don't get the lawn done. Now, you didn't mention the garage. You didn't mention that there was clothing on the floor of the house. You didn't mention any of these things. Why? Because if you make that list, none of the things are going to get done. If you say, hey, maybe we could knock out the lawn. I don't want the homeowners association to be putting a letter in the mailbox tomorrow about how our lawn needs to be done. So maybe we, and when the person does that, if you go outside as they're finishing the lawn and you hand them an iced tea, right? Or a cold beverage and go, thank you so much. And it looks fantastic. It's never looked that good. You know what you're doing? You're handing the rat a pellet. I'm sorry, it's the truth. Now, as you're trying to build back trust and you're trying to build back relationships, know this. When B.F. Skinner trained the rat to go up that ladder, the rat sucked at it, right? Believe that. The rat was not very good at it. He didn't go, well, I'm not rewarding this thing. Look how bad he is. Seriously. I mean, when he gets good at this thing, I'll tell him that it might take 5 or 6 months to start getting the relationship to a point where you want it to be. In the meantime, you better be rewarding every little step on the way. He mows the lawn and the lawn sucks, right? One of the other things that we have is that the exceptions stick out, right? So as human beings, we don't go, wow, you mowed the front yard, the backyard, the side, you trimmed everything. Amazing. You go, you missed a spot right there in the front. You see that little thing sticking up? You missed that right there, right? And everything else that he did, I am never mowing this lawn. Let the homeowners association do whatever the hell they're gonna. I'm done. And unfortunately, that anger is going to carry over into the rest of the day. And we do it all the time. We get really, really bad at communication. The exception stands out and the great stuff doesn't. You come home and the entire house is clean, right? Everything is perfect. And there's one dish in the sink. If you go, oh, you left the dish in the sink. You think he's going to clean the house before you come home the next time? Or on the flip side of that, one of the things that used to drive my first wife crazy, if I came home from work and didn't immediately go in and say, hey, how you doing? What did you do today? You know, what did my son tear up? Like if I did anything before sitting down and having a conversation with her, then for the rest of the night, she was going to be really angry. It took 3 years for her to tell me this. Wow. I kid you not. Now, there were days that I came home and I saw something that made me want to ask her a question. And the next thing you know, we started to talk and everything was good. And that night was great, but I wasn't smart enough because men are stupid. I was never smart enough to put 2 and 2 together and go, boy, if I just talk to her when I come in the door.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Amazing. Yeah. It's also amazing that she wasn't smart enough to say to me, you know what really would make me happy? Don't be afraid to say to your significant other, do you know what would really make me happy? And here's a little advice. So if you're her, you don't go, man, every time you come in here, you got to go call a friend. You got to go, get on the TV or you got to do this. You don't have time to talk to me. The night's ruined. You did not reinforce a behavior. If she had said to me, I don't know what it is, truthfully. Maybe I'm insecure. I don't know. Or maybe it's just that I'm here all day long trying to deal with a kid who's a bit of a wild man. But if you just took a couple of seconds to reinforce that you love me when you walk in the door, you know what I would have done? I swear to God, I would have brought home roses every night for a couple of weeks. I would have sat down and there would not have been one day ever for the rest of my life. I wouldn't have come in, sat down and said, come here, sit down, take a load off your feet. Let me get you something to drink. What happened to you today? How was your day?
Yep, exactly.
But we don't tell each other what we need. And the funniest thing is the reason we don't, if you ask people, why don't you just tell them that? Well, he should be smart enough to know that. Let me help all of the women on the boat. We're not smart, right? There's a reason I went with B.F. Skinner as an example, because Men are not much smarter than rats.
100.
For real. 100%. There are things that we're good at, and there are things we suck at. And primarily what we suck at more than anything is communication. Sadly, it's what you guys are the best at.
Yep.
Right? So the goal is to make sure that we somehow meet in the middle of all of this. Right? Somehow we have to meet in the middle so that we can actually start to put together a relationship that is going to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As I said, the exception stands out, right? The rule does not. So let's say your significant other is trying to get sober and they go 364 days without a beer. That's impressive. It really is. Relapse is a part of what we do. Sad but true, it is. And then on 365, right? On that day, they drink. And they don't do anything epically stupid other than relapse. So often that person will go to them and say, I knew you couldn't do it. I knew you couldn't do it. You know, you promised me you were never going to drink again. You don't care about me. Let me assure you, right, that person didn't drink because they don't love their wife. They drink because part of their brain fires when it shouldn't, and part of their brain doesn't fire when it should, right? They have a mental illness, right? An actual no lie disease. Mark, you agree?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, everything you're saying is spot on, and I think something that you might be touching on here in a minute. I'm not sure if you're going to get to this or not, but Miss Dragon says I can get feelings across better in writing than talking. That's a legitimate thing, guys.
Absolutely, it is.
If you can't say it,
absolutely it is.
Yeah, if you can't say it, write it down. That's also the beauty of the internet too, because you don't have to look at somebody to talk to them. You can actually, we use that here to open up, right? Because you don't have that wall there. You don't have that person looking at you in the face, and you're afraid that you're going to be judged.
Boom.
So it's not there. So you can say what you feel. You can say how you feel exactly. Also, when you write it down, guess what? You get to think about it a lot before you put it on a piece of paper.
And you know what, Mark? You hit it out of the park. When you write it down, right? And this is one of the reasons that we scream for you to journal, right? When you write it down, you can't write a letter with the use of your emotions. Doesn't mean that you can't put your emotions down on paper, but you understand the difference. There's a part of your brain that rules the emotions of your life. And there is a part of your brain that gives you the ability to put a pen to a piece of paper and write, and they're not the same part of the brain. So even if you're really angry or you're really whatever, when you go to write and you sit down and you put the pen to paper, the frontal lobe is now engaged, which means that the part of you that is just gritting your teeth has been turned off. Of course, you dragged a little over there, but it is turning on a different part of the brain. One, oddly enough, that is darkened on addicts, right? This is part of the brain that doesn't fire the way it does in everybody else. So it's an essential thing. And the key to this, Mr. Dragon, thank you. The key to this,
Miss Dragon. How about that?
Yeah,
there you go.
You feel like you got a 14-pound tongue. The key to this, though, is making sure that anybody that you're giving this to understands that. Because sometimes that's intimidating. When you get something that's written down, there are people, and there was a good comment back here a second ago that said, you know what, men aren't stupid. We're just not great necessarily at opening up. I'm paraphrasing. But it was something along those lines. Wait for it said, we're smart, but we aren't in tune emotionally. And there's some truth to that. There are some men that are great as far as being in tune with their emotions. The ability to communicate that to somebody else becomes a problem for a lot of guys. And of course, I'm kidding when I say we're stupid, but our ability to communicate and our ability to read our significant other, is really sometimes a difficult thing. And what you need to know is when you first meet somebody, right, and you first start hanging out with them, your brain is doing the same crap it does when you do cocaine. No joke, right? So you meet somebody and the reward center of your brain is going, this one's awesome. This one's a keeper. So it goes, gah, and it throws down a big blast of dopamine. And we get addicted to that. That's why we don't, you remember in high school, that first girl, and you would jump out of the window of your house at 12 o'clock at night, run 6 miles barefoot right through the woods to get to her door so you could yell at her through her window, right? Those things go away. It doesn't mean that we love the person any less, but the dopamine stops getting released. And now you're sitting in a room looking at somebody going, oh my God, right? I got the next 12,000 days with this person. And this doesn't feel like it did in the beginning. I got news for you. Of course it doesn't. Thank God it doesn't. If it did, you wouldn't go to work, right? Nothing would get done. So knowing these things, and they should be really obvious, right? I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody doesn't know. The problem is when that emotional part of your brain gets kicked on, then the part of your brain that thinks logically goes to sleep. For real. They're never working real well at the same time. I love the idea of writing it down. I really do. I think it's a great idea. It also, if the person's smart enough to hold on to it, right? They don't have to memorize all of the things. Even still, I would not make a list of 40 things you want your significant other to work on. Keep complaints small and rewards massive, right? If you say to them, boy, it'd be great if we could knock the lawn out, because they're gonna complain about that. And then you take 15 minutes telling the person what a great job they did on the lawn, they're gonna look forward to it the next time they do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane to be true. Go ahead.
I guarantee you John Bobbitt wishes he had done something like that. I'm just saying. I mean, it is what it is, Hey, Joanna, we got her on the line here. I'm going to bring her in, and we can
please do. Actually, John Bobbitt and I were at a prison together.
Really?
We were.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have went there. I apologize.
You're good.
But Ilea actually said it earlier too. She's like, men are, can't communicate. Women are, I think she used the word crazy, emotional really. And it's really like a mix for just a bad situation.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is this, once you get a handle on the fact that we're built a little different, right? Once you get a handle on the fact that we communicate a little different, there are things that can really, really get done to fix things. I thought one of the greatest comments I read on the lifeboat, and by the way, people, I kid you not, we have answered 30 or 40,000 comments, right? So it's rare that a comment comes up that you go, wow. But in the live feed the other day when Heather said, I am so mad at my husband, you know what I'm going to go do? Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I guarantee you that fixed it.
Yeah.
The average person is not going to think that way. I'm really angry at this person. I'm going to go do something great for him. Watch what happens.
Yeah.
Right? It really does become a thing that we train the people that we love. Sorry, it is what it is.
Tommy Bird said, was talking earlier how we were speaking in code. And, and that is definitely something that we have to understand that we don't need to do that. Like Tommy was saying earlier, sometimes you got to set, especially a man, and I hate to go gender here, but there is a difference.
No, you have to.
And, sometimes you got to set us down and say, hey, I am so tired of picking the socks up off the floor.
Right.
Don't walk by and say, man, I got to do laundry today. Don't do that, because we're not gonna piece it together that you want us to pick the socks up off the floor. Because you're doing laundry today. We're not gonna do that. Tell us that, right? You just got to be in our face, just straight up with it, and and yes, okay. Sometimes you got to lay a little sugar on it to get it to go over. Okay.
Right.
I mean, honestly, you don't have to be rude and mad and mean and say things, but be completely honest and straightforward. Because there's no sense. That's what we understand. We hate it when it's the other way and we're trying to read between the lines. Hate that.
I had a neighbor in Salt Lake City, and she was an absolute genius. Truthfully, one of the smartest people I ever met. And she knew I was on drugs and tried to help. She would come over and talk to me and the ex-wife. But I always knew when she wanted her husband to do something, because she would be out front or whatever, and she would be dolled up like you wouldn't believe. And the first time I saw her out there, I said, boy, you look beautiful. I said, well, you guys going out or something? And she said, no. She said, but my husband's a very visual guy. She said, I know exactly what makes my husband, happy. She said, so no, I got a couple of things I want to ask him to do. And when I look like this, it always works better. And I remember walking away and my wife said to me, hey, that is the most sexist. I said, that's what you got out of that? I'm like, I think it's genius. She knows exactly what this guy is, right? And if you know your significant other, if you know that picking up those socks are going to make the person happy and you don't do it, you're a jackwagon, right? Find out what makes your significant other happy and do it. Don't remind them that you did it, right? When they come home, don't go, hey, I picked up all of the socks, right? Just do it. Get into the habit of doing small things that make the person that you care about. And I don't care if you're married to them or they're just your friend. Mark and I work together a lot. Every once in a while, one of us will be having a bad day. And if I happen to say to him, you know what, I love you, man. I really appreciate everything you do on the boat. If I happen to say that on a day that he's having a bad one, really great things happen.
It does. Right? That just happened.
Really is one of those things. It just did happen pretty recently.
It did. That was awesome. And
Yeah.
it really is. It's a good thing, guys. And I know we're kind of doing the man-woman thing here, but it goes to the friendship
Hard
thing.
not to.
Yeah, it is. But it also goes to the friendship things too.
You're
here.
damn right it does.
It's relationships across the board. And you said something earlier that I want to say something about just being able to dump it all out at the beginning, because there's so much healing in that. It's ridiculous. You no longer have to sit back and wonder what lie you told that person. You don't have to do that no more. You just do whatever, and if you get it all out there on the table, there you go.
There you go. So you said we had Joe here?
Yeah, Joanna's here. What's up, Joanna?
Hi, y'all.
Hey.
Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I wanted to comment on all this because I experienced it.
Good.
I was married for 20 plus years, and the man I married, I was 17 when I met him. We married when I was 18. We had two kids right away. But we were best of friends. We could laugh and joke together and just enjoyed each other's company. I think that's what helped us to make that 20 years, because there is times like this where you do miscommunicate, or you think the other one knows what you're wanting them to do. And like Mark said, they're sitting over there wondering what you want, And that caused arguments. That caused, and it'll drive a couple apart too.
Absolutely it will.
If it takes its place in your relationship and keeps going and going and going.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I've always been of the firm belief that you can continue to love someone like you did in week 1 or 2. I really do. But I think that it's one of those things that as you get further in, you have to make an effort to do so.
Thank you. Yes.
You know what I mean?
And I made that mistake. I ended up leaving him after 20 plus years.
Wow.
And divorced him. But what's so funny is we still stayed, in contact throughout the years, off and on. 10 years later, he asked me to move back in with him platonically. So I spent the last 6 years with him, and it was wonderful because now we were mature. We knew all the mistakes we'd made. We knew how to, had already corrected them by this point within ourselves. So we could just really enjoy the relationship again like we did when we were first married.
That's
and
awesome.
It was beautiful. But what I want to say is, y'all don't let it go and just go and go. Realize that any day you could lose that person. I didn't expect my husband to die in front of me after he was only 58, 59 when he passed.
Wow.
And I was 53, and I'd known him since 17, so he was my best friend throughout life. It was like a shock.
Yeah.
Not only at his death and the grief, but the fact that he just wasn't, he wasn't part of my life anymore. I mean, he was just that big of a person in my life. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But too many couples take each other for granted, and they think, oh, we got years. We'll do this, down the road, or
Right.
maybe we'll get counseling in a few years because we got to get these kids raised, and that sort of thing. Don't let it happen.
That's great
Really.
advice.
Don't let
That
it
is
happen.
great advice. Don't put off anything that you can do to make the relationship stronger for another day. That is the
Correct.
absolute dumbest thing you can do. That's
She-
great
Mhm.
advice,
She
Joe.
she just dropped a whole lot of knowledge on you guys, and everybody needs to
Amen,
listen
right?
to it. I mean, honestly, that's life knowledge right there. That ain't coming out of no book. That's coming out of her heart. And
Right,
that,
the
that's
boat.
awesome. Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
down there. Really.
And be willing to humble yourself and go back to that person and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I lashed out at you. It wasn't your fault. I was having a bad day or whatever. Not to make an excuse, but to explain. And I know most people's spouses are going to be touched by that, and their heart's going to soften. They'll be, I know it's okay. I forgive you. You know.
I've said it before too. Joe should work in telemarketing. Like she should be the person who calls when you owe like $40,000, or when they turned off your cable by accident, right? Or the person is supposed to be there at noon and they don't get there for 3 days.
Yeah.
Because you just have the nicest voice. Like,
like
I
calming.
can't imagine arguing with her on the phone, right?
Very
Oh.
calming. It is. It's very calming. It really, truly
I've
is.
said that to her from the first time we talked. She said, "Good Lord, what a great voice."
Well, thank you. But that's all I really wanted to say. I just didn't want people to leave this conversation not thinking about that aspect. Don't take them for granted, because you
No,
could
we-
lose them.
You're absolutely right. It's
Yes.
a great point and a great call.
Yes. Most certainly.
I think
Awesome perspective. I mean, honestly, it really is. And, the communication is,
that's key.
Yeah.
That is key. And to be honest
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
with yourself and them. you
Well,
know.
without honesty, there's nothing.
Right.
If everybody doesn't get that, without honesty, there's literally nothing. And
Mhm.
I know it's a really hard thing for a lot of us because, as addicts, we lie to everybody. It's what we do. And as you get sober, it better be the first habit you break.
Correct.
Better be the first habit you break
because
because
if you're not honest with yourself, you're not going to get anywhere as far as sobriety. You may
Well,
for
and-
a moment.
and you're not going to have one relationship that's worth anything.
No.
They're all
And
built.
you know what?
They're all built on trust.
You know what? Now I want that. I mean, I've been single for 5 years now, and it's like I'm past the grief. Alan, thank goodness, has been such a dear friend this past year that he's helped me with that. So
He's a
I
great
re-
guy.
Yes.
He is. I adore him.
One of my favorite
But-
people.
But and mine too. But I'm ready for that. I want to experience it now with that knowledge, and see how much. I mean, my heart's just bursting to give somebody else lots of love.
Perfect.
I
I love it.
But anyway, I'll let the other people get in that want to call tonight.
Thanks, Joanne.
Joe,
And we love
great
you.
call.
We love you.
Great
Yes.
call.
Awesome
I love y'all
stuff.
too, and I appreciate you a lot.
Don't hesitate to call again.
Yes.
Please.
All right, I'll talk to y'all soon.
Okay. Bye
All
bye.
right, Joe.
Bye bye.
Tell me that Joe just does not have one of the just most calming voices in the entire world, for
Well-
real. Either that or she should do those books that they read.
He had the audio
Oh, yeah,
readovers.
book on tape or whatever.
That's an awesome idea. She could freaking make a mint doing that. I guarantee you.
I'm telling you, between her and the other one that always gets me is Trinity. Trinity has one
Yeah.
of those voices too. Between the two of them, I think one of them should be my alarm clock, and the other should read. Do the you're going to sleep. Just relax. right?
Exactly.
You'd
Exactly.
be absolutely
That's
set.
awesome. That's so,
So,
crazy.
And I'll tell you what, I think the point that, the 2 points that you got to take away from that call. Number one, don't take anything for granted. Don't take anything for granted. You don't know how much time you got, and never put stuff away. John, thank you, by the way, for the generosity. I appreciate it. Didn't want to cut her off in the middle of what she was talking
Right.
about, but very much appreciated. Really appreciated. So people, as we start moving forward, one of the payoffs of this whole sobriety thing is being trusted again. And the first time it happens, I'll tell this story because I remember it. I hope Johnny's still on here because it kind of blew my mind, and I remember having a conversation with him about it afterwards. But we lost Papa Scoville, a few years back, and it was just a really difficult thing, and and it brings up a whole lot of other stuff that all of a sudden has to be discussed. And Mama Scoville is near his age, and so she started kind of getting her affairs in order. And one of the things I remember her coming and saying, I think I might want you to handle some of this. And, there was a couple of investments I wanted you to, and I remember going, good Lord, right? You want the heroin addict bank robber to, to help out with the with the finances. And I'm telling you what it did for me, it's the reward thing that we were talking about. I cannot tell you enough. I could do an entire show of just talking about how reward, good, right? Anything else, really bad. If you really want to build a relationship, then anything that someone does that makes you happy, don't assume they know it makes you happy, because I assure you they don't. And that goes on both sides of the equation. Take the time. You know who Nietzsche is, right? He was a philosopher that was not a lot of fun, right? Sort of said a lot of things that was kind of depressing. But he said, if you really, really want to destroy somebody, don't discipline them when they do something wrong, because when they do something wrong, they're expecting discipline. They're expecting to get yelled at. They're expecting, in a lot of ways, it makes them feel better. Instead, discipline them when they do something right, and watch how fast you can destroy a human. It's a terrible thing that anybody should have ever had to say, but what an absolute eye opener if you sit and think about it, right? You can destroy a human being. I don't remember who wrote it in there, but somebody wrote a comment that said, I can clean the entire house, I can do the laundry, I can fold everything, but if I don't do this, it's what's going to be noticed. And it's like I said, the exception is what is noticed. You can clean the entire house from top to bottom, right? But you didn't fold the laundry. If your significant other comes in and says, what, you didn't do the laundry? You may as well light the person on fire. I mean, the damage that can get done, it's just what Nietzsche said. You're now punishing somebody, right, for something that they did good. That is an absolute sin. It would look great in the watch cabinet behind you, 2 Omegas and a Powermatic. People, you don't know, this auction was ending right. We had a bunch of auctions that shows you how much I love you people, because I really wanted these watches. And fortunately, Lady Fiona Crispin doing what she does best. So that's good. Thank you.
And something
they
else
look great behind me. Go ahead.
And something else to the subject, we talk about how we can fix our relationships and stuff by communicating. We can also dig ourselves out of depression doing the same thing. You got to start talking. If you don't, you're going to be stuck looking at the wall, and you're not going to get anywhere. And it's
boy, oh boy,
horrible mindset, because I think most of us I'm talking to right now have probably been there. And if you look back on how you got out of it, you probably started talking to somebody.
It's a great point.
You just can't hear it or see it, especially when you're that far down.
And you'll also forget it quicker than hell.
Oh yeah.
As you just said, what probably got you out of it was communication. I thought to myself, guaranteed it's what got you out of communication. And then my next thought was, and I bet you don't remember that. And that's really kind of my sobriety date is 12/12/06.
Awesome.
Lord, how good is that?
That is awesome.
Dan, aka Brad Pitt.
It's an awesome name.
Dan, do me a favor. Dan, drop an email to us. Could somebody with a blue wrench put the emails up into the comment section? Dan, please reach out. Do not suffer in silence. Thank you for saying that here. You did say it toward the end of the show. You might have just got here, but we would love to reach out to you and talk to you. If you're living with that, we don't want you to do that alone. So please,
sure.
Please reach out. And people, there's what Mark just said is so huge, because communication is the out for everything. This was a relationship show, but it is the out for everything. You understand? In our marriages, we can suffer in silence. In our relationships at work, we can suffer in silence. In our relationships with our kids, we can suffer in silence. And as addicts, right, we can suffer in silence. All of these things are not going to end with something good, right? So the standard joke on the lifeboat, if you're new here, is that, take all of that stuff and hold it inside and don't tell anybody about it and just let it fester, because good things happen, right? Nothing good has ever come of that, whether it's relationships, whether it's anything else. You have to communicate. Mark nailed it. If you want to get out of depression, you better tell somebody why you're upset.
Yep.
And if you don't know why you're upset, that's fine too. Talk to somebody and say, I don't know why I'm upset. But you better let somebody know how you're feeling. Please reach out. Never hesitate to send somebody an email here on the boat. Yesterday, we did a show yesterday where we talked about this, but I got so much out of yesterday.
Yeah.
And I learned something huge, that I could send emails to people all day long, and I can happily answer emails all day long. But there are some situations that someone just needs to talk. It needs to be a back and forth. And we're going to be putting some stuff together where there's always going to be somebody on the boat. That I've had volunteers, I've had a lot of people send some comments, and it was funny. About 3 of you in the course of 1 week said, I would be so willing to talk to anyone who's in a bad place. I wouldn't know the right things to say. Let me tell you something so that nobody gets this wrong. Where the hell have you been?
Yeah, cemetery.
Where the hell?
Probably working.
No, you know what? This is so funny. This is so funny. So no, for the last week, I have been going to my emails and I've been typing in cemetery, and I've been trying to find it, because Cemetery's bought a couple of watches from me. So I figured he had to be somewhere in a database, and I couldn't find it. I asked somebody else. You better reach out to me right now and send me an email.
Yes, please, Dan.
I'm worried sick about you.
Yeah. Dan, please send us an email too. Me or Tommy.
Dan,
or
he said I'll email you all. It's pretty bad, so I will reach out, and you will get somebody to contact you.
Yes.
For real, you will. So just do it, and do it fast. Don't wait a day, right? Like we're talking about right now. People communicate and do it fast and do it often. And Cemetery, you better send me an email too. And I mean now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm worried about you. You scared the heck out of me.
Yeah, we've been talking, especially behind the scenes, because guys, you got to understand, we see all you guys, and we may not always remember your exact acronyms and stuff on your names, but we know when you're not here.
Right.
Okay. We really know when we're not here. Hey, Mark, what's up, brother?
or we remember Cemetery, but we can't remember the real name. I am Noise Opera. Good to see you, brother.
Mark Pyre's in the house.
I really appreciate that.
Mark Pyre stopped in.
No. If I had your number, I wouldn't even be asking you to send it to me, you jackwagon. I can't put I don't have it under Cemetery, so I might even have the name, but I don't remember what the name is. So I'm looking through. I'm not going to dial 400 numbers. Just send me an email right now with your phone number, please, bud. I love you. I'm glad that you're here. My goodness.
Yep.
My goodness. And I know I stopped as soon as I saw him, and I don't remember what I was talking about, but that's okay.
That's all right.
We're right at the top of the hour anyway.
Yep.
People,
we are.
I'm having so much damn fun doing this. I can't explain it. I really can't. And there is so much cool stuff going on. If Mark and I told you all of it, there's just good stuff going on, people. This is just going to keep. Hey, Mark Pyers.
That's what I said a minute ago. I don't think you heard me.
Oh no, I just heard Mark. I didn't.
Yeah, I said Mark Pyers was in the house. Yeah.
People, if you've never seen Mark Pyers, can somebody drop a link?
Yes, we can do that for sure.
Do that.
If somebody can get it, if not, I will. So
we can. If one of the crew members could put Mark Pyers' link up. Mark is a musician, a comedian. He sells real estate. The man does everything. He is a Renaissance man, literally.
And a real estate agent.
He just
I think Mark, didn't you just list a $6 million house?
Good Lord.
Serious, I think I seen you do a video on it.
He also invented one of the coolest devices you've ever seen in your life.
Yes. That's
the Beat Seat.
Yeah.
A guy playing the guitar can sit on this, and just with the use of feet, legs, and a hand if he wants. Please text me, Cemetery. He has the ability to be both the percussionist and the guitarist at the same time. It's really a wild thing, and he invented it and patented it. But you can actually see him using it on his show, and it really is, and it's a very, very good group of people over there too. You won't run into anybody.
There ain't no negativity at all.
No, there's no negativity at all on over on Pyres.
There you go.
Thank you. We're honored to have you on the boat. There you go. That's the link, people. You see that?
You know why that's so short now? Remember that, Tommy? Remember I was talking to you about that?
Yes.
That's how we're doing it. You guys, you can go to other platforms and just type that in, our name, and it'll bring you here.
How cool is that?
It's really cool. It's working that way now. So that's why that link looks so short. You guys remember when you guys would do that, when we would do that in the past, it'd be like a 2-line thing, rerouting you here and everywhere. And anyway.
Yeah, literally. Well, alrighty. You know what? This night's been awesome. Mark Pyers at Cemetery is going to send me a text, although I haven't seen it yet. I'm just saying. Oh no, maybe I did.
He's gonna make you a liar on TV? Come on, man, or on the internet? What's going on with that?
He didn't. He didn't make me a liar yet. I'm not seeing any text.
Okay. Then you're safe.
Hey, Buddha, love you, brother. I really do.
Yep.
Buddha's a great guy. You know what? I've been spending more time talking with Buddha one-on-one. Great dude.
Yep.
He's from Massachusetts. I won't hold that against him. But other than that, just a really, really good dude. Alrighty, people. We have reached the top of the hour here on the Lifeboat. And you know what that means? The big red button will be getting antsy. So we are going to we're going to call it an evening. However, we are going to be back tomorrow night. Same squirrel time, same squirrel channel. People, between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody. And guess how you do that? You communicate. The opposite of addiction is connection. We love you. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Captain Mark Wages.
and that's a cat in the basket. Good night, everybody. We love you.